Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining this new webinar. My name is Lionel Palassin, and I'll be your presenter today. Today, we are going to cover interesting use case where we combine BPM technology and blockchain to create advanced application. The webinar is being recorded. The recording will be available for all of you shortly after the session. Also, using the GoToWebinar tool, you can ask any question during the webinar. I will take some time at the end of the webinar to answer all of them. Also, if you don't see my screen, if the audio is not perfect, don't hesitate to let me know. I will try to correct that as much as I can. All right, let's get started. First, what is quickly a blockchain? Let's take an example first. Here we have an application on blockchain where we want to move money from A to B. One of the best use case of that is Bitcoin. Basically, Bitcoin works this way because it's implemented on a blockchain. So in a blockchain, how would you do that? So basically, the movement of money from A to B will be described in a transaction. This transaction will be added as a block. This block will be broadcast to every party in the network. The blockchain network will process the transaction and validate it or reject it. And if every member of the network agree on the validity of this transaction will be added to what it's called a chain. The chain is an order list of transactions, and therefore the money will be moved from A to B. It's a really high-level explanation of how transactions happen in a blockchain. So as you already understand, probably we are here talking about a decentralized network. Some people make the analogy of decentralized database to describe the blockchain network. And with that comes certain benefits. The first one is a virtual continuity, because every single participant of a blockchain network will hold a copy of the entire ledger, the entire history of every transaction that ever happened on the blockchain. And if everybody holds the same copy, we can trace the journey of any asset that is managed by this blockchain network. And therefore, we enable what we call the virtual continuity of an asset, because we know exactly what happened to it. Transparency is another benefit. As I said, in a public blockchain network, every participant holds a copy of the ledger, so everybody knows what happened on the blockchain. So there is a strong transparency of asset movement on a blockchain. Resilience, due to its nature, decentralized nature, the network is really robust. If one or parts or many nodes crash, the network is still available for the remaining participants. Immutability, because there is a consensus system to validate the transaction in the blockchain. It's really hard, or virtually actually impossible, to forge a transaction or to modify a transaction that already happened on the blockchain network. Therefore, the information are immutable. Independently, there is no central authority that will run the blockchain network. Every participant has the same level of access. And therefore, we have what we call a self-trust in the network. One of the best examples for that, again, is Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, we basically a blockchain implementation, basically managing units of Bitcoin, which is called now a cryptocurrency. And because people have trust in the network, the Bitcoin managed by this network worth actually money. Let's take a look to some challenges. Obviously, it's a young technology. A lot of people compare blockchain today as to internet in year 2000. At this time, internet was a young technology, not a huge adoption. It was still hard to actually create websites. You need like some dark knowledge at that time, so it was really not for everybody. The adoption was not mainstream, and we can compare that with what's happening today with blockchain. People see a big potential on it, but it's still vague. What is going to become? What are the implementation that are going to be mainstream? And today we have hundreds of different implementations besides blockchain or Ethereum that are out there and trying to propose a different approach to blockchain implementation. We have other challenges, for example, energy consumption, because it's decentralized nature and every participant will have the responsibility to process the transaction, will hold a copy of the entire ledger. The energy consumption of the network is definitely not optimized. Privacy, transparency is a benefit, but the other side, the opposite side, is the privacy, obviously. If you want to build financial systems on the blockchain network, you might want to have some privacy in the data you are managing. And finally, integration, as I said, the technology or the knowledge necessary to actually build an application on blockchain is pretty high right now. Therefore, the integration by many users is still not happening. So to overcome some of those challenges, we already have some solutions. So one of them is a private blockchain. So it's basically to handle the privacy issue. Basically, some company, and you will see today in our demo that we are using one of these, implements what they call private permissioned blockchains. So it's basically deploying a blockchain within a set of non-participants, and the implementation of this blockchain also provide features to enable data access to certain participants within the blockchain. Also, on those private blockchain, public auditability can be implemented, so you can have a regulation agency or government agency being part of your blockchain, and therefore they can actually audit what's happening in your blockchain. It's really useful for applications that are implemented between financial systems, between banks, because the government and regulation agency obviously wants to know what's happening there. In terms of adoption and integration, we really believe that BPM platform can help companies to basically create, deploy, and manage advanced business application, especially the application that will involve many different organizations. So let's take a look to that. First, three main benefits that we identify when you actually want to combine BPM platform with blockchain technology. You basically allow multiple partners that don't trust each other to trust a common process due to the nature of the blockchain. You improve the customer engagement, and you provide end-to-end traceability and real-time audit trail. So let's get a detailed look on that. First, allow multiple partners to trust a common process. Basically, using a BPM platform, the process will encapsulate the business logic that allow multiple participants to exchange assets, and that will also orchestrate the action that needs to happen on the blockchain to basically move those assets. And also those processes can be used with the notion of smart contract to basically enhance the business application built using VPN platform and blockchain network. Customer engagement in a multiple parties solution is even more challenging than in traditional business application. So with a VPN platform, the developers will actually ensure a seamless coordination between the different systems, and then can also create dedicated apps for each single parties and UIs. And finally, end-to-end traceability and real-time audit trail. So basically, we will combine the existing audit and traceability features provided by VPN platform with the blockchain features such as local, global data visibility, digital signature, transaction history, and so on. So to illustrate all of that, we are going to have a demo. So basically, what I did is I built today an application that will run this use case. So the use case is really simple. We have application for customers to basically order a car. So if we describe quickly the process, we have a customer who will want to buy a car, so you will query, or he will ask the local retailer what are the cars available, what can he buy. He will place an order to buy a new car. The local retailer will check in his local car store if the car is available. If not, the car will be ordered to the car company production site. The production site will therefore produce the car and ask the regulation agency to issue a new asset on the blockchain that will represent the car. And using that asset, we will be able to realize a transaction where the customer will pay using digital currency to get the car. To keep the demo easy and as clear as possible, I will really focus on one point today, which is the transaction at the end of the process between the customers and the local retailer. I choose this one because it's the most complex one. Basically, we will have one transaction where we have multiple parties involved and we'll trade multiple assets within one transaction. So we will see how the BPM application orchestrates the different tasks to prepare the transaction and submit it to the blockchain. So as I said, we've built a solution based on Bonita BPM and chain.com. Both are providing open source solution. So Bonita BPM provide a open source Bonita BPM platform. Chain.com provide an open source private permissioned blockchain. So I will show you the architecture, but quickly what we did is we will have all the orchestration business logic in Bonita, so to basically streamline the process that needs to happen between the different parties. In Bonita, we will have different applications, so each parties can interact with the process. So the customer will have a customer portal, the store manager and the production site manager will have a car company portal, and so on. And finally, the process will integrate the blockchain network that we deployed on my machine through Bonita connectors. So here, the architecture I was basically describing. So we will have 3 applications. They will communicate through REST API to my Bonita BPM platform. Bonita BPM platform will run the process that drives basically our applications. And this process will have connectors that will be executed at certain point in time to execute specific action on my blockchain network. Blockchain network, as I said, is powered by chain.com, is deployed on my machine, and is basically composed of 4 different participants. We can also call them cores. You can see a core as a computer, basically. So each of these cores will have a specific function. As we are using chain.com, and I wanted to quickly present you the data model that we are using. So it's mainly valid to many blockchain implementation, but it's really true for chain.com because that's basically the data model they came up with. So we have 3 main objects that we can manage in the blockchain network. First is the asset. So it's basically a virtual object to represent any goods, basically. In our case, we will represent the different car models that we have, and we will also represent the currency that the customer can use to buy cars. This asset is viewed as a global data, which means that everybody on the network have knowledge about this asset, but only the core who hold the private key linked to that asset can issue new assets in the blockchain network. The second object is account. So this one is basically representing each single participant of my applications. So I will have 2 customers, for example, John Doe and Jan Replay. I will have users in my car company, so a store manager and a production manager, and each of them will be represented by an account. And an account is basically a wallet to know what person owns at any point in time, and they basically own X unit of assets, basically. The account is a local data, which means that only the core that hosts those participants will have a view on those accounts. And finally, the transaction is basically the action that happens on the blockchain to move assets from different accounts. So let's take a look to what's going to happen during the demo. Basically, we have 2 cores that will be involved during this transaction. So just a step back, what we want to do in that specific step is to sell the car to John Doe. So Bonita store will sell the car for $50,000 to John Doe. So let's take a look from a blockchain network. What are the required steps that need to happen to realize this action? First, on the car company core, we need to prepare the transaction. So because the car company core is managing the Bonita store account, we will start with this core. And basically, using this core, we will say, I want to create a new transaction. And in that transaction, I want for the account Bonita store to spend 1 Bonita white car. And in exchange, I expect to receive $50,000. So it basically gonna return me what we call a partial transaction containing those information. This transaction will be signed by the Bonita store private key and so on. Now we have this private transaction. We can move to the next step, which is connecting to the customer account core and using the partial transaction we got from the car company core, create a new transaction and adding more information basically. And here we're gonna say for the account John Doe, I want to spend $50,000 and I expect to receive one Bonita red car. All of that will compose our global transaction. This transaction will be then submitted to the blockchain network, replicated to any participants in the blockchain network, and either validated or rejected. In our case, it will be validated because the two transactions match. So basically, we have an account that spent $50,000 and another one who expect to receive $50,000, and same thing with the Bonita white car. And also, we assume that those accounts hold those specific assets at the moment of the transaction. So we see that to actually make that happen on the blockchain network, we need to have specific steps that happen. We need to have good knowledge of what are the different assets, what are different accounts. We need to have a way to actually move this partial transaction between one core and another core. And basically, to eat that, we came up with a solution saying, why don't we use a BPM platform to basically streamline those actions? So let's take a look to how it would work using a BPM solution. Basically, we will have a dedicated application where the user will enter the information to prepare the payment, saying, well, I want one car and I want to pay it for $50,000, by example. And here, the platform will be in charge to interact with the car company core. So in our case, through a connector, it will connect to the blockchain network participant. It will get the partial transaction information, and using that partial transaction, we will have another task where another user will be able to review it, enter more information, and so on, and submit the task where we will have another connector that will use the information for the partial transaction and the information received by the user to finalize the transaction. So hope this is clear. We're gonna have now a quick live demo. So first, I'd like to show you quickly the different applications that we have. So here I have a first application where John Doe can connect and review. Either he can order a new car, or he can review the status of the car he already ordered, basically. So that's one business application, and really from the point of view of the final user, he doesn't really know that there is a BPM platform and a blockchain network associated to the action he's going to do. So we have one for the customer portal, and we have others for, by example, if I open another session and I open my car company portal, I have another application for the car company participant. And in that case, I log as a store manager, and I can see I have one task ready to be performed. Well, that's interesting. On the blockchain network side, basically using chain.com, each single core, basically when it's up and ready, comes with a web interface. So using this web interface, I can actually connect to it. And here you can see that it's actually running on a virtual machine on my local machine. And I can basically look at this default dashboard provided with each single participant in my private blockchain. So here I can see, by example, the list of all the transactions that happen on the blockchain network. Because I am actually looking at the core that manage the customers, I can see the different accounts. And by example here, John Doe is the user we are going to use for the demo. And if we go into the details, so we have many different information, not really user-friendly, to be honest, but really interesting for person who actually manage a blockchain. Here we can actually see the balance held by this specific account. So here we can see he has 3,000 units, 300,000 units of this specific assets. If I go to see another participant of my blockchain, for example, the asset issuer core, so he's the one who is in charge of issuing new assets. Here, this one will actually hold the list of all the assets, and we can see we have an asset to represent the US dollars. And this participant, by example, doesn't see any accounts. So you can get an idea of a global data and private information. Now, the demo really focus on how we're gonna transfer the money from John Doe to our store manager and the car from our store manager to John Doe. So for that, I'm actually sitting on the task that will prepare the payments. Let me show you that quickly in Bonita. So here I can connect as an administrator and I can review the state of a specific case. So I have my car order case and I can see where it sits. So basically here I have my process that is in charge of powering this application. And here we can see that we are ready to notify for availability the customer. So this task is assigned to the store manager. When he will submit this task, we will go to this specific task, prepare payments, which is a service task that will be executed, and move to the next step, which is confirm payment, which is a human task, and that task will be assigned to John Doe. So if you want to get more details about what's happening behind this task, let's bring the studio. So here is the Bonita Studio, so that's the tool to design the process basically. And here we see the exact same process. So I have my notify availability. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Here we retrieve the task notify for availability, where my case is currently standing. This task is assigned to store manager. And when we will process this task, we can see we have a connectors, and this task is called prepare payment. So if you remember the slide, that was the first task that we will execute to integrate the blockchain application. So here we have a connector called prepare transaction, and basically that is a connector we implemented for integrating chain.com. And basically we can configure it to say, well, what is the core I need to connect to, and what are the information I need to provide, and finally I will store the results. You remember the partial transaction, we will store the partial transaction as a variable of my process. So that's that connector is just one of the many we built to integrate chain. So if I show you quickly here, we have a library of connectors for especially a chain that are available for all of you if you want to integrate this specific private blockchain. That can be reused basically not only in this application, but in any application that will actually integrate chain.com. And if you don't want to use chain.com, you can actually build connectors for any blockchain network, obviously. So now, when we will execute this connector, we will move to the next step, confirm the payment, and we will execute another connector that will use this partial transaction and finalize the transaction. So let's see if we can run this specific use case. So here I have my pending task, so I'm going to refresh, and here I can actually process to payment. So I have no other task. If we check here, I can refresh that. We should now sit here on the confirm payment. And if I connect as my John Doe, here we can see it's waiting for payment. I can review the information about the payment and then submit the payment. And the car say now it's delivered. If everything went fine, I should see a new transaction here. So here, 2 minutes ago, we got a new transaction. And if I look at the account for John Doe, I should see now I have $50,000 less dollars, and I have my car available. So we can see that not really user-friendly. One good thing would be to actually implement in the application itself a report based on the information to basically display at any point in time what are the different assets held by the different accounts. All right, that's all for me. Thanks for your attention, and if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask me. So you can just use the tool provided in GoToWebinar to ask any question. So will there be a recording provided? Yes, we will provide the recording after the session. I just need to edit it, and it will be available on the bonitasoft.com website. It will be upset on YouTube and on Vimeo. Is there also a test model available to play with? So this is based on open source technology, as far as I remember. So yes, the source code of this application should be available. I will make sure to actually indicate it in a summary email after the session. Another question is, do you have successful use cases you can share with us today? So basically, this is the use case that we built to illustrate our prototype. Basically, right now we are discussing with different partners to see how we can move forward, but we haven't built anything that is in production as of today. But it's a really interesting angle to approach the different blockchain application, and yeah, persons are really interested in different domains. We talk with a healthcare company who want to see how they can implement clinical trials, drug tests, and that kind of stuff. We talk also with a retail company to see how we can implement supply chain applications, and so on. I have another question, which is, can this be used for any blockchain networks? So right now we implemented the connectors to integrate with Chaincom chain.com. Chain.com is actually providing a Java SDK that we used to integrate with Bonita. I won't say like we can integrate with any blockchain network because I don't know all of them, but I'm pretty sure we can integrate with most of them. I started to work on trying to integrate Ethereum network. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Ethereum shouldn't be too complex to integrate. I'm sure Bitcoin network can be integrated really easily with all the different SDK that are available today. So yeah, as long as a blockchain network provide a way to communicate with it through REST APIs, through HTTP APIs, through any SDK with their own protocol, we should be able to integrate it through connectors. So I have a question. On a permission network, how many nodes are needed to ensure reliability and prevent consensus hijacking? So basically, it's a good question. So I don't think it depends on how many nodes are actually needed to ensure reliability. I would say if you have less than 2 nodes, less than 3 nodes, is going to be hard because basically the way the consensus can be hijacked is if someone has the control of more than 51% of the participants. In that case, the attacker is technically in position to hijack the consensus system. So it really depends on if you have only 3 participants in a blockchain network and you don't really trust 2 of them, you can be in a bad position. If you start like to have 100 of participants, you are really comfortable. If you are only 6 participants and you don't know, you already know they don't trust each other, they're really high on securities and stuff like that, you are in pretty good also position to say, well, it's not likely the case that someone will own 51% of a private blockchain participants. I hope he answers the question. Another question, is there also a use case that you can think of that could be applicable to the aviation industry? That's a good question. I think one of the use cases for the aviation industry would be the supply chain. I think it's really important to know where all the different parts of a plane are coming from, and there is a big need for tracking those parts. And in that case, definitely the blockchain network will help with the traceability of any part of a plane. But I'm welcome to know more about different use cases on the aviation industry. Another question. Thanks for all those questions. Those are really interesting, guys. How does Bonita Soft on blockchain differ from Bonita Soft on a relational database? Really interesting. So basically here we have to see blockchain as a third-party system for Bonita Soft. So Bonita Soft will still have its relational database to store the runtime information that are specific to the Bonita engine. But here what we do is through the connectors layers, we will integrate a third-party system, which is in our case the blockchain network. So I have another question. Most blockchain hacks are actually hacks of the application connected to the network. How are you ensuring this security? Yes, it's a great question. Right now, as we are on the prototype level, We didn't really went to that aspect of trying to secure any single communication with the blockchain network. And that's why we also we keep working with different blockchain providers to become more and more close to a production ready application. The idea here was really to show what could be the benefits, engage the conversation, start the discussion with different parties to see how we can approach the integration of a blockchain network through a BPM angle. BPM integration with blockchain can be integrated with Ethereum. In theory, it can be. Again, I started recently a prototype to do this kind of integration with Ethereum. I didn't have the chance to spend more time on it, but as far as I can tell, it's doable. Another question, is it free to use chain.com via Bonita Soft? Yes, chain.com provide the open source version, so you can go on their website and download the open source version of their technology. We are using the Docker image they provide, so you can download the Docker image and run it. And Bonita Soft also have a community edition, so yeah, you can basically build that on a free version. Is the chain.com connector available in the community edition of Bonita, or does it require the enterprise edition? Right now, we develop them as a community edition, so they don't have any support, but the source code is available for testing integration. It doesn't have the quality probably required to go in production. It has the quality required to do a demo in the prototype. Another question here, how are you using IoT, or how are you guaranteeing the car was delivered to the ordering customer? So that would be a question I would ask when we actually build such application. Again, here we are illustrating the application through a prototype. If I have to think about it, using IoT through the blockchain network, probably we have another technology will probably be the way to go. Is the Bonita, the BPM platform will be leading the integration with an IoT system, or the IoT system will integrate directly with the blockchain network? That I don't know yet, but yeah, it's definitely interesting use case to look at. Another question, you talk about seamless connection between parties. What data standards are you using to ensure this seamless exchange of information? So basically here we provide a seamless connection between parties by involving them through a common process. So basically they will have, each of them will have their own application powered by the Bonita platform, but they will all be part of a common process. Therefore, the exchange of information between parties will be ensured by the process. So in terms of data standard, we will have what is used in our BPM engine is probably like Java objects that are transiting in the process. Another question, in the BPM for the connectors, where do you indicate in the BPM the data to be written or read from the blockchain. So basically, if I take back my studio, here, by example, we have one connectors. And so basically, the connectors will execute one action. And this action is using behind the scene the Java SDK provided by chain.com. So depending on the action that we will use, we will either read data. So we have different actions to query data from the blockchain. For example, if we want to read information about an account, so we will use, in that case, the operation provided by the blockchain network. But we also have other actions integrated to other connectors that will actually submit a transaction to the blockchain network. So in that case, if I look at this connector, this one is in charge of completing the partial transaction that have been initiated. So we'll submit an action to the blockchain network. So we can say it's a right action. If I look here, I have a connector that will actually just get an account information. So in that case, it looks pretty similar, but actually knowing the name of the connector, you can know what will be the action performed on the blockchain. And here we will use another function provided by the chain.com Java SDK to read information from the blockchain. And another question is, we are planning to build a demo application similar to the one you presented. Can we use community application as an enterprise? Yes, you can definitely try to build something similar that what I did using the Bonita community application. Of course, you'll be way less limited if you use the enterprise edition, because it comes with many features that will help the development. So yeah, it really depends on your need. Great. That was quite good questions, guys. Really glad you asked all of them. Hopefully you really enjoyed this webinar. If you have other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be happy to engage with you. I'm really excited by this blockchain technology, and it's really interesting all the conversation that's been initiated by those kind of like prototype building application to integrate blockchain. People are really interested as well in any sectors of the industry. So let's keep the conversation going. The recording will be available soon. You will get an email that summarizes basically this webinar. Thank you again for attending this webinar. I will see you very soon.